think life stops surprising you after a certain age? Well, think again, because whether it's finding family or rekindling old flames, these tales will remind you that it's never too late for a fresh start. Having said that, here are 5 inspiring stories of people in their golden years who've seen that life can change beautifully and dramatically at any age. Just wait until you meet Roger in the 5th story, whose chance encounter at the grocery checkout leads him to a newfound family. Let's get started. 1. I became a millionaire after my sons kicked me out. Imagine being thrown out by your own sons only to end up a millionaire. That's exactly what happened to me after my boys left me with nothing. My husband, Todd, and I wanted our twins, Cole and Elijah, to become doctors. We were uneducated and lived on the ranch, but we worked hard for our boys' education. After Todd died in a buffalo stampede, I even became a maid to fund their schooling. Years later, a wealthy rancher tempted my boys to sell our land. "We've decided to take up John's offer, Mom," Cole told me at dinner one evening. "But we really need that money, Mom," my other son argued. I was adamant and still refused. So the next day, they threw me out, claiming the land was in their names. My siblings wouldn't help, so I had to go to a homeless shelter. Thankfully, the shelter became my new family. I also found solace working as a maid for Mr. Williams. He was an elderly businessman, who not only paid me well but also listened to my worries. One day, the inevitable happened. Mr. Williams passed away in his sleep. I was shocked to learn he left me his fortune, but there was a condition: I couldn't share the millions with my kids or siblings, the people who abandoned me. My boys, realizing I was wealthy, asked for money. But I refused. My new family in the shelter deserved the support, not the sons who abandoned me in my time of need. Always remember that if you disrespect your parents, you only deserve disrespect in return. Moving on, let's see what surprise life had in store for Amanda and her grandmother, Natalie. 2. I found my grandma's long-lost love in a cafe. You know how they say that if you love something with all your heart, it will manifest? Hi, I'm Amanda, and I used to work as a waitress at a cafe years ago, and I believe in this, thanks to an incredible love story I got to be a part of. So, there was this old man who came to our cafe every day, looking super sad and like he was searching for someone. I was new, so naturally, I asked my colleague about him. She told me he'd been doing this for about 20 years. My curiosity totally got the better of me, so I decided to approach him. "Hello, sir. I'm new here, but I notice you come every day as if you're expecting someone. Who are you waiting for?" I asked. "I'm waiting for the love of my life," he replied. "And who's that?" I asked, smiling. He smiled back. "Natalie," he said. "Natalie Stevens." It turns out the man, Ralph, and Gran met years ago when she was his housemaid. Despite their differences, they fell in love. Their relationship was secret, but eventually, my mom found out and forced Grandma to choose between love and family. Gran chose her family, and on what should have been the day Ralph proposed to her, she never showed up at the cafe where they were supposed to meet. But for almost 20 years, Ralph waited for Gran at the same cafe, hoping she'd return. When I told him I was Natalie's granddaughter, his eyes filled with tears. "Grandma told me about you. She moved away with Mom all those years ago, but she regretted leaving you," I told him. That weekend, I brought Grandma back to the cafe. When she saw Ralph, she couldn't stop herself from crying. "Ralph? Is it really you?" They embraced, both in tears. "I thought I'd never see you again," Ralph said. and I thought I would have to live with regret for the rest of my life. I should have never let you go, Gran replied. They spent the rest of their lives together, finally reunited. Well, things ended happily for Natalie, but up next is Meredith's story, who had to deal with something devastating after her husband's death. 3. A shocking letter in my late husband's drawer broke my heart. They say you can never know everything about a person, and I lived that. I felt like he'd been living a lie when my husband passed away. I was standing, teary-eyed, in front of Justin's grave. Everyone else had left, but I couldn't pull myself away. We met when we were 16 and had been inseparable since. Our only regret was not having children. But despite that, our 55 years together were blissful. But one fateful day, a call shattered my world. Justin had died in a car accident. I was devastated. After the funeral, I wandered into his study, still filled with his scent. I opened his desk drawer and found an old letter addressed to Clara B., 50 Oakland Avenue, number 206, Florida. The letters spoke of Justin meeting Clara and little Sophia. I also found photos of Justin with a young woman and a little girl and guessed they were Clara and Sophia. My heart sank. Was Justin cheating on me? Desperate for answers, I flew to Florida. Oh dear. Clara had just opened the door when I blurted out that I was Justin's wife and that he passed away, almost accusing her of ruining my marriage. And Clara's eyes filled with tears. She explained Justin was like a father to her, helping her when she was pregnant and homeless. Clara's husband, Tyler, and their daughter, Sophia, soon joined us, and they shared stories of Justin's kindness. The only conclusion I could draw was that maybe he was afraid I would never be able to accept another girl as our child, since I really wanted kids of my own. Anyway, when Clara and her family found out how lonely I was after Justin's demise, they eventually moved in with me. Sophia even started calling me Grandma, and I felt like I had been blessed with a family I never had. Just like Meredith, things took a wild turn for Agatha when she was called to the lawyer's office after her husband's death. What exactly happened? 4. My late husband left his estate to a stranger. All I got was a pendant. Imagine losing your husband and finding out he left his estate to a stranger. That's the bombshell I faced, but it led me to a surprising discovery and a new beginning. My name is Agatha. My husband, Richard, and I met in college and settled in Milwaukee. We had dreams of a big family, but it never happened for us. After countless failed attempts, we decided to just enjoy our lives together. We had a big farm with lots of animals, and that kept us busy. Richard never seemed too upset about not having kids, and I made peace with it, too. We loved each other deeply and had a good life. As we got older, running the farm became too much, so we hired help and eventually moved to a suburban area of Milwaukee. Life was good until Richard had a sudden heart attack. The doctors couldn't save him. Losing him was devastating, but I was grateful for the life we shared. A few weeks after Richard passed, our lawyer, Mr. Perkins, called me in for a will reading. I thought it was strange since we didn't have kids or close family. When I arrived, there was a woman I didn't know sitting in Mr. Perkins' office. Confused and angry, I asked, "Who is Sue Raymond? Why didn't I know any of this, Mr. Perkins?" explained that Richard wanted me to meet Sue. He left the room, and Sue told me her story. She discovered Richard on social media and found out he was her father. They did a DNA test to confirm it. Her mother, Sophie Raymond, never told Richard she was pregnant and left Milwaukee. I was stunned. Richard had never mentioned any of this to me. Sue explained that she didn't ask Richard for anything but that she had 2 daughters and could use the money and property. I told her, "Richard left you everything, so you keep it. Just give me a few days to pack my stuff." Back home, I started packing. Luckily, I had inherited a condo in Tampa, Florida, from my parents. It wasn't part of our marital property, so I decided to move there. While packing, I looked at the turquoise pendant. It wasn't valuable, but it had sentimental value. Then, I noticed it was actually a locket. Inside it was a tiny note that read, "Agatha, look in the study under the table." I went to the study and found a key and a letter taped under the desk. The letter explained that Richard had hidden money and gold bars in a safe behind a painting. He didn't leave them in the will to protect me from any legal claims by Sue. I retrieved the money and gold bars, finished packing, and moved to Florida. Life here is good. The weather is great, and the community is friendly. Sue and I connected on Facebook, and she still sends me pictures of her daughters enjoying the farm. Richard made the right choice. I think he wanted to help both of us in his own way. I'm finding peace here, and I hope to honor his memory by living a happy life. Up next is Roger's heartwarming story, and I'm sure you'll love it. 5. My regular customer's story broke my heart. So, I've been working as a grocery store clerk for years now, and one of my regular customers was an old man named Roger. Every week, he'd come in with a long list of groceries, always including ingredients for chicken pot pie. "You must really love your chicken pot pie, Roger," I said once while helping him pick out the ingredients. "Oh, yes, I do, Emma. My wife Laura makes the best chicken pot pie in town," he replied with a smile. It was sweet how he talked about his wife's cooking, but I found it odd that I'd never seen her. They lived just a street away from the store, yet I never saw her come by. One Saturday, Roger didn't show up. It was strange because he never missed his weekly grocery trip. I waited another day, but still no Roger. I grew worried. After my shift, I decided to check on him. His house was nearby, so I walked over and rang the doorbell. No answer. I called out, "Roger?" Nothing. I was about to leave when I heard a cough from inside. The door was unlocked, so I let myself in. "Roger? It's Emma from the grocery store," I called out. Old man promises to wait for woman he loves at their favorite cafe, waits nearly 20 years after my boyfriend kicked me out after learning I'm pregnant. 26 years later my son paid him a visit. My story girl's future in-laws ban her dad with disability from her wedding and get taught a lesson. Emma, I heard him say weakly from a room. I followed the sound and found him lying on the couch, looking sick and pale. "Roger? Are you alright? Where's your wife?" I asked. "I'm so sorry, Roger. I was worried when you didn't come to the store," I told him, helping him sit up. He looked like he hadn't eaten in days. I gave him some medicine and went to the kitchen to cook him something. I saw the chicken pot pie ingredients on the counter, untouched. Has his wife been gone for a while? I wondered. I cooked the pot pie, hoping it would make him feel better. When it was ready, I brought it to him. "I know it's not as good as Laura's, but I hope it helps," I said. Roger smiled weakly. "Thank you, Emma. I haven't had chicken pot pie in over 4 years," he said. "Why do you buy the ingredients if you don't cook it?" I asked gently. To be honest, Emma, I've been living in a fantasy where I think Laura will come back. So I prepare all the ingredients for when she returns. And at the end of the day, I just leave it outside the house for anyone in need to take home. he admitted, tears in his eyes. From that day on, I promised to check on Roger regularly. I cooked him meals every week, which he could reheat whenever he wanted. He became healthier and rarely got sick. And that's how Roger and I became family. Life works in mysterious ways, doesn't it? So, keep your heart open and your spirit curious, because sometimes, the best chapters are written later in life. We're curious, what do you think about these stories? Tell us in the comments. Note, these pieces are inspired by stories from the everyday lives of our readers and written by a professional writer. Any resemblance to actual names or locations is purely coincidental. All images are for illustration purposes only.